first Irish National Holy Year pilgrimage to Rome, leaving St. Andrew's Church, Westland Row, after solemn benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, given by His Grace Most Reverend Dr. McQuaid, Archbishop of Dublin and Primate of Ireland. At Dunlera, the pilgrims are seen off by His Grace Most Reverend Dr. Dalton and Most Reverend Dr. Farren, Bishop of Derry. So the overland pilgrimage sets out on its long journey across Europe to Rome. Preceded by a motorcycle escort, President and Mrs. O'Kelly arrive at Dublin Airport for the start of their flight to Rome. Mr. O'Kelly inspects the guard of honor drawn up on the tarmac before the terminal buildings. A battery of the 2nd Field Artillery fire a 21-gun salute. Mr. Costello, Mr. McBride, and the Taoiseach's ADC, Commandant Byrne, are amongst those present to see them off on their Holy Year journey. The following day, a party of pilgrims led by the Primate, Dr. Dalton, and the Bishop of Raphoe, Most Reverend Dr. McNeely, arrive at the airport en route for the Holy City. Carrying a gold-mounted walking stick, a present to His Holiness, is 97-year-old Right Reverend Monsignor Thomas Langdon, probably the oldest pilgrim to make the arduous journey to the Eternal City. At Collinstown to wish the party bon voyage are Dr. McQuaid and Mr. Sean McBride. Once airborne, the pilgrims settle down as their plane heads out across the Irish Sea, over England and onto the French coast. It circles over Nice, and after a short halt there for refueling, takes off once more on its course. Over the snow-covered peaks of the Alpine mountain ranges, the plane moves on, until at last the passengers can see far below in the failing light of the late evening the rooftops and church spires of the Eternal City. The clearly visible outlines of the great Basilica of St. Peter's come into view with the great dome dominating the surroundings and the buildings of Vatican City gathered around it. At Ciampino Airport, the Primate is welcomed by Dr. McWhite of the Irish Legation in Rome and by representatives of the Vatican State and the Irish colleges. At the Church of St. Patrick, the Primate celebrates the first Mass of the national pilgrimage in the Eternal City. For the pilgrims, the Holy Year ceremonies, which come only once every 25 years, have begun. Amongst the congregation are the members of the Irish Army Equitation Team. On the Esquiline Hill stands the church dedicated to Our Lady, St. Mary Major, sometimes called Our Lady of the Snow because of the miraculous circumstances of its foundation. Here, the President and Mrs. O'Kelly meet the Primate and the Pilgrims. In order to gain the Holy Year indulgence, the Pilgrims must visit the 4 principal basilicas, of which St. Mary Major is one. At the Villa Sparda, Irish Embassy to the Holy See, a reception is given by President O'Kelly and the Irish Ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Joseph Walsh. In the beautiful gardens of the embassy, officials of the Vatican and members of the diplomatic corps are made welcome. Mr. Walsh welcomes the Primate. Other distinguished guests include Monsignor Montini, Acting Secretary of State to the Vatican, and Cardinal Micara, Protector of the Irish College in Rome. Wandering through Rome, the pilgrim finds himself ascending and descending the hills on which the city is built. This city of heroes, of martyrs, of divine grace, of saints, of popes, and of unity, which goes back to the dawn of Christianity. On one of the 7 hills, we find the magnificent Quirnale, with its fountain and group of palaces, once royal and once papal, and now the seat of the President of Italy. Dominating the Piazza Vienzia is the immense monument of Victor Emmanuel II, completed in 1911 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the foundation of a united Italy. In the center of the great square of St. Peter's is the obelisk which formerly stood in an adjacent circus where St. Peter and many other martyrs shed their blood. Behind the right-hand colonnade rises the Vatican Palace, where the Holy Father lives. The air of peace which pervades this beautiful and historic square is, if anything, enhanced by the stately fountains and the old-fashioned horse-drawn carriages, which are still a popular feature of life in the Eternal City. Across the Tiber rises the stately castle of St. Angelo. The pilgrims arrive at the Irish College for a reception given by the Archbishop of Armagh and the Primate of all Ireland, Dr. Dalton. With the Primate is Dr. McNeely, and together they receive the guests. Dr. Dalton chats with the rector of the college, Monsignor McBride. A parade of mounted carabinieri opened one of the big social events in Rome during the pilgrim stay, which had a particular Irish interest. This was the International Horse Show in which the Irish Army jumping team, headed by Lieutenant Colonel Corrie, competed. Pilgrims who attended the jumping contests saw their team win several trophies, some of which were presented by Carmencita Franco. Afterward, in the paddock, the team was visited by His Excellency Mr. Joseph Walsh and the Irish Minister to Italy, Mr. Devlin, and his wife. Built over the last resting place of St. Paul, this great church, the third of the pilgrimage basilicas, is a worthy successor to the earlier Constantine church. In the foreground is a magnificent statue of St. Paul by Canonica. In the center of ancient Rome is situated the Foro Romano, originally a market, which later became a center of debate on political and juridical questions. Centerpiece of this group of monuments is the Arch of Severus, erected in 203 AD to honor a series of Roman victories over the Parthians and the Arabs. Moving past the holy stairs on the spacious square of San Giovanni, the pilgrim comes to the mother and head of all churches of the city and of the world, St. John in Lateran, fourth of the major basilicas. This classic example of 10th century Roman architecture, dedicated to the two St. Johns, is surmounted by the statues of the 12 apostles. Fronting the basilica is the bronze statue group of St. Francis of Assisi with his disciples. St. Clement's, Church of the Irish Dominicans in Rome, is built on the home of the third successor to St. Peter. Recent excavations have shown that the present edifice is superimposed over traces of two previous churches. The Pantheon, originally a pre-Christian temple, was dedicated to the Blessed Virgin by Pope Boniface IV. It is now called St. Mary of the Martyrs. Every great city has a street which is the particular pride of its citizens. In Rome, it is the modern Via dei Fori Imperiali, built in 1932. Standing on top of the Victor Emmanuel monument, pilgrims can look along the whole length of this spacious highway. Flanked by ancient and historic ruins, the Fori Imperiali stretches down to the Colosseum, in the oval arena of which Christianity met the world and overthrew it, where the martyrs won for Christ his kingdom in the hearts of men. Beneath us is the famous Piazza Vienzia. St. Isidore's College, founded by the Irish Franciscan Father Luke Wadding in 1618, has special importance in Irish history. For to its classrooms in the dark days of penal times came young Irishmen to study for the priesthood. From it, every year, returned the men who were to keep the faith alive during Ireland's difficult years. Emphasizing its strong ties with the motherland are the paintings of St. Patrick and St. Bridget, which greet the visitor on either side of the entrance hall. The flame of a splendid sun, the apostle of virginal Ireland, may Patrick with many thousands be the shelter of our wretchedness. The deep impression left upon the pilgrim visitor to St. Isidore's is one of serene tranquility combined with quiet, unobtrusive piety. But today, the main sphere of Irish educational influence in training for the priesthood is centered around the Irish College in Rome. It is here that Irish pilgrims come to view the bed on which Daniel O'Connell died at Genoa on his way to Rome, and the monument in which his heart is enshrined. From the roof of the college, the panorama stretches from St. Mary Major's to the Vatican over the rooftops of the old patrician residential areas. Vatican Radio, from which the voice of the Church goes forth ceaselessly in every tongue to the four corners of the globe. The correct present time in every country of the world is shown on the famous world clock. Father Henry Nolan, a past student of Belvedere College, Dublin, who is director of English broadcasts, speaks on the Indian service transmission. At the foot of the Quirnale lies the charming Piazza di Trevi. It has for centerpiece one of the most fantastic of Roman fountains, erected by Pope Clement XII in 1725. The seated figure in the group is Neptune, and his pearly chariot is drawn by winged horses whose tossing heads are held by wild tritons. It is an old custom for visitors to toss a coin into the fountain of Di Trevi. The Romans say that this will ensure that they will come back to Rome again. The Via Ibergnese, or the Street of the Irish, is so named because it was the site of the original Irish college in the Eternal City. One of the principal public schools is that conducted by the Irish Christian Brothers in Via Marche Antonio Colonna. Under the direction of the superior Brother Conlon, 700 Italian boys, varying in age from 5 to 15, receive here a first-class education. The college celebrates this year the 50th anniversary of its foundation. The universality of the church is underlined by this scene outside the African mission as colored students leave to attend lectures at the Propaganda College. The provincial of the African mission is Reverend Father Harrington. For 31 years, Father Michael Brown of the Order of St. Dominic has been professor of theology in the Angelicum, where students for the priesthood study philosophy, theology, and canon law under celebrated Dominican professors. From here, we have a most outstanding view over the 7 hills of Rome. St. Stefano Rotondo, wherein lies the tomb of Donogh O'Brien, King of Cashel and Thomond, and son of Brian Boru. In modern times, Ireland is developing artistic links with Rome. Irish students of the arts have an excellent opportunity to develop their talents under ideal conditions. President O'Kelly, on his visit to His Holiness the Pope, reviewed the Guard of Honor of the Palatine Guard and the Vatican Gendarmerie when he arrived in the courtyard before his private audience. With the full traditional Vatican ceremony reserved for visiting heads of state, the President was received by the Pope. After Mr. O'Kelly had reaffirmed the traditional loyalty of the Irish people to the Vicar of Christ, the Holy Father gave a special blessing to the President and his family, the government, and the beloved people of Ireland. Outside St. Peter's, the pilgrims gather for their audience with His Holiness Pope Pius XII. A boy who has cycled all the way from Donegal to be present talks to the Primate and the Bishop of Raphoe. This is the culminating point of the Irish National Holy Year Pilgrimage, the event to which all the pilgrims have been looking forward so eagerly.
Our special greeting to the Irish National Pilgrimage. Che di mille foilte. Ritorni nostri in nomine Domini. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen.
For the hundreds of Irish people who have been privileged to be present on this memorable occasion, there remains vividly in the mind the lasting impression of a crowded week. For them, Rome will always signify the Anno Sancto, the Holy Year of 1950.